For more than a decade, Travis Kelce has existed in a financial category that matched his football resume: elite, irreplaceable, and worth every dollar. But as he approaches what would be his 14th NFL season, the equation facing the Kansas City Chiefs is no longer about legacy. It's about projection. And projection can be uncomfortable. Travis Kelce, now 36, just completed the 2-year, $34.25 million extension he signed in 2024. That deal carried an average annual value of $17.125 million and, at the time, briefly made him the highest paid tight end in football. It was a contract that reflected both production and prestige. Kelce wasn't just a Pro Bowler, he was the engine of the Chiefs' passing game, the security blanket for Patrick Mahomes, and the face of sustained AFC dominance. But the market doesn't stand still. Since Kelce inked that extension, the tight end landscape has shifted. George Kittle and Trey McBride both secured deals that surpassed Kelce's previous annual average, resetting the top of the position. Younger, entering or in their primes, projectable production curves. Kelce, meanwhile, is confronting the reality every great player eventually faces: the difference between what you've done and what you're expected to do next. Despite being technically an unrestricted free agent, the expectation across the league is that if Kelce plays, it will be in Kansas City. The idea of him wearing another uniform feels almost unnatural. NFL insider Tom Pelissero has indicated that discussions have already begun, signaling mutual interest in extending the partnership. The question isn't whether both sides want it, it's how to price it. Kelce's 2025 production shows he remains highly effective. He posted 76 receptions for 851 yards and 5 touchdowns across 17 games. He earned his 11th consecutive Pro Bowl selection. Among tight ends, he tied for 6th in receptions and ranked 4th in receiving yards. Those aren't farewell tour numbers, they're legitimate starter numbers. But they're also not peak Kelce numbers. There was a time when Kelce threatened 1,300 yards annually when he dictated coverage structures and forced defensive coordinators to reimagine nickel packages. At 36, he's still polished, still savvy, still dangerous in option routes, but the explosive separation isn't quite as frequent and the volume ceiling appears lower. That nuance is what complicates negotiations. The Chiefs are coming off a 6-11 season, their first losing campaign in 13 years. The offense showed cracks beyond just Kelce's aging curve. Wide receiver inconsistency, running back depth concerns, and offensive line fluctuations all contributed. And hovering over everything is the health of Patrick Mahomes, who is returning from a late-season knee injury. Mahomes' presence amplifies Kelce's value. The chemistry between them has defined an era. Timing-based option routes require trust that can't be replicated overnight. In critical third-down situations, Mahomes instinctively looks for number 87. Removing Kelce from that ecosystem would create schematic and psychological ripple effects. Yet, the salary cap is unforgiving. Kansas City must allocate resources strategically. Paying Kelce at or near the top of the market could limit flexibility at wide receiver, a position that desperately needs reinforcements, or along the defensive front. The front office isn't evaluating Kelce in isolation. They're evaluating him relative to opportunity cost. Former NFL general manager Mike Tannenbaum articulated the harshest version of the argument: you pay for what a player will do, not what he has done. That mindset isn't emotional, it's mathematical. If Kelce commands $15 to $17 million annually again, the Chiefs would be betting that his 2026 output mirrors top-tier tight ends in their late 20s. That's a risky bet at 36, regardless of resume. There is precedent for late-career tight ends accepting adjusted compensation. Tony Gonzalez signed a 2-year, $14 million deal with the Atlanta Falcons shortly after turning 37. At $7 million per year, that contract placed him outside the very top of the market at the time. Adjusted for today's cap growth, that figure would equate to roughly $17 million annually. But context matters. Gonzalez wasn't being paid as the premier tight end anymore. He was being paid as a high-level veteran contributor. Kelce may face a similar crossroads. SpotRack projects his market value around $10.8 million on a 1-year deal. That number places him in the second tier of starting tight ends. Respected, productive, but not market resetting. For Kelce, the decision may hinge on priorities. Does he seek maximum compensation, leveraging brand and resume? Or does he prioritize finishing his career in Kansas City with roster flexibility that enhances championship odds? A hometown discount doesn't necessarily mean undervaluation. It could mean a lower base salary paired with performance incentives, per game bonuses, playoff escalators, statistical thresholds that reward availability and impact. That structure protects the team while giving Kelce a path to recoup earnings if he performs at a high level. From a strategic standpoint, such a compromise makes sense. Kansas City needs offensive continuity as Mahomes recovers. Removing Kelce would force immediate schematic adjustments. Young tight ends rarely replicate veteran route nuance. Drafting a successor might be wise long term, but expecting instant production is unrealistic. At the same time, clinging to aging stars at premium prices is how contenders erode slowly. The Chiefs must balance reverence with realism. Kelce's leverage lies in more than numbers. He's a cultural pillar, a locker room tone setter, a postseason performer whose resume includes some of the most critical catches in franchise history. Leadership has value, though it's harder to quantify on spreadsheets. There's also branding impact. Kelce remains one of the league's most recognizable personalities. Jersey sales, national visibility, and marketing reach aren't irrelevant considerations, especially for a franchise rebuilding momentum after a losing season. But none of that overrides cap math. If Kelce were to command near his previous $17.1125 million annual average, Kansas City would likely need to restructure other contracts or sacrifice depth elsewhere. In a roster with multiple question marks, that may be untenable. The more plausible outcome is a one-year deal in the $10 to $12 million range, with incentives pushing total value higher. That structure aligns with SpotRack's projection and acknowledges both his sustained productivity and age curve. For Kelce, accepting less than market peak doesn't diminish legacy. It may, in fact, enhance it, signaling commitment to finishing where it all began and prioritizing contention over compensation. The alternative, testing open market waters, feels improbable. Few teams would pay a 36-year-old tight end premium dollars while also offering legitimate championship infrastructure. In Kansas City, he has chemistry, familiarity, and unfinished business. The 6-11 season exposed fragility within what once felt like an automatic contender. A recalibrated contract for Kelce could become part of the reset, not a sign of decline, but of strategic evolution. Ultimately, this negotiation isn't adversarial. It's philosophical. How does a franchise honor a future Hall of Famer while protecting its future? How does a veteran star reconcile competitive fire with financial reality? Somewhere between legacy pay and hometown discount lies the answer. And if both sides navigate it carefully, Kelce's 14th season won't just be about extending a career, it will be about redefining value in the final chapter of one of the greatest tight end runs the league has ever seen.